this article been going viral in the comedy community. So a big article came out, and the purpose of the article, it was saying, can the future of comedy be found in socialism? And this is the LA Times. Danny says yes. I'm not so sure.
Of course it is. Socialism cures everything.
And before we get in the article, I'll just say the gist of what they kind of were saying was, they're talking about, you know, this comedy co-op that like 30 people get together and they, you know, UCB.
First off, this is an improv thing.
Yeah.
Because improv notoriously fucks everybody over.
Yeah.
Like improv notoriously is like really takes advantage of people.
Yeah, because they basically get people to work for these places and they pay them in training from the other people there.
You know what it's like? It's like Tiger King, how you go work at the Tiger thing, and if you work for free and like someone gets their fucking arm ripped off, but they're all just working for free this whole time just so they can get like upgraded to like a higher rung on like the Tiger.
Yeah, you get your fake, like, this is what Kurt said this too. They go, they're very good at paying people in things other than money.
Yes.
So they're like these institutions that operate in the sense of like a school a lot of ways, where it's like, yeah, you're getting, or like an apprenticeship, but these apprenticeships become these like lifelong journeys for people a lot of times.
Exactly.
Right? And the idea is you move your way up. So again.
And 1% of you make it, maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe one.
You can name 5 improvers off the top of your head, but
I'm talking about all the people who do like fucking
sketch comedy. Yeah.
No.
I'm saying it's lower than 1%.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I was being generous. Yeah. 1/10 of 1%, maybe. Like it's.
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of, and before I even got in this article, because this is that thing that sort of happens where a lot of times people are kind of just doing their thing. And because the media is so out of tune with everything, they come out and they make these like bold statements because it aligns with what they want to say. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I don't want this to be a slight against the people, just because like, dude, if you want to make your 25 people and have a co-op and do an improv club, that's fine. And maybe it'll do good. Maybe, you know, it's like, that's not really the point here. The point is the media is like how they think about comedy and how everyone in that world thinks about comedy. It's like, first of all,
can I just give little pat on the back to the LA Times, because they are super far left. Generally, at least they frame this as a question and not saying the future.
Well, they don't. They've framed it as a question.
The article.
Like, they've also framed it as like the question's been answered.
Yeah. They go here, but at least like they're not like. But yeah, it's insane.
So and they kind of go back and forth of whether talking about socialism in terms of like the payment structure and socialism in terms of like, you know, how comedy should operate in general, which is the funniest take ever of like a bunch of people like socialize their funniness to financially. It's like, you know, maybe I give you a little bit of your funniness. Maybe you're funnier tomorrow and I take a little bit of your funniness.
Maybe, hey, you were a little too funny. I didn't feel like you kind of gave me a little opportunity to be funny today. So
yeah,
if we kind of share the wealth.
Which is probably the least, it's the same as sports, where it's the most art form where it's very difficult to socialize.
Yeah, well,
there's just such talent gaps.
Yeah, and like it's, you know, it's art. It's not sports.
But
so there's no
the revenue created by those talent gaps can be the difference between like $100 million and $5 million. You know,
yeah.
And that's what they're always having this conversation about box offices and stuff, where they're like, why weren't these people paid equally? It's like, well, the difference between names sometimes at the box office can be the difference between millions of dollars.
Oh, easily. And so I don't know if like just maybe because people don't know. So UCB, which is the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is the famous. I don't know if they have them anymore. I don't know if COVID wiped them out.
I think they're getting wiped out. They're trying to get bought out.
They're trying to get bought out. But so like, because people don't really know this. So they were like the big improv thing. It was started by Amy Poehler. I don't know, the bald dude, he's in stuff, and 2 other people. They were like became mainstream stars in like TV and stuff, but then they were also making tons of money off, like, people don't know that like Amy Poehler is like a quarter owner of UCB,
and she was getting rich, and they made a few people, like she was able to make Broad City and stuff
totally
like that.
They definitely made a few people, but like there was this point where everybody's like, yeah, so like, you know, you pay $200 for a class, and then they put you like they say, oh, that was really good. You can do this like main stage show where we sell tickets, but we can't pay you because like our rents are so high. And like they would come up with every excuse in the book, while like the owner was like on you know, Parks and Rec, like
Right.
huge star.
Okay.
You're loaded outside of this.
I didn't really know the story.
Yeah. It was I can't remember the other guy's name because he's also like a big, not to her level famous, but you know him. And then, but they were like, they're just like, it was pretty fucking shady what they were doing. They kept just crying poverty, being like, well, you know, we're not doing that.
They're standing there with their pockets out.
Kind of, yeah, being like, we don't have the money to pay you. And I will say the thing about the socialism too is like comedy is generally a shitty business, and this is going to be shitty comedy. So you have to assume just adding socialism to this will make it an even shittier business. Right? Like you're not helping the business element of this by adding socialism.
But I get the idea of what they are thinking of doing. And one part of it is that the things that they're providing. So let me just backtrack a little bit. So there's this thing where in every industry, where whenever feedback comes from internally and not externally, that's the number one thing that gets corrupt, right? Mm-hmm. So this idea of like socialism and socializing, you know, based on whatever different factors, they are already doing this in most, you know, there's already Comedy Central making choices based on things other than, you know, on what they would consider fairness.
Yes.
So this idea of like socializing entertainment is already currently happening, right? But the mix of corruption always comes from any, like when you say academia, the news, they're peer reviewed. So the most corrupt places, any government that doesn't have to, you know, listen to a voting or any sort of public, the most corrupt places are when there's the least external outfront. So in stand-up comedy, that's why one of the reasons it's good is because you have an audience. Mm-hmm. So that's always been like that, right? But the actual principle that they're talking about of like socializing where we all own an equal part of this, like a co-op, this has been done that's called a band. That's called an improv troupe. Like this isn't a new idea.
You're going to run into the exact problems that every single one of them runs into.
That's correct.
They go, hey, we can't pay the rent this month.
That's true. But the bigger problem that you run into is one person is now insanely famous.
There's you know, the movie, I don't know if I saw it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's with Michael Keegan Key or whatever, Key and Peele guy. Is that his name?
Okay.
And it's literally, this is the movie. It's about a guy.
Oh, no. That was like, fuck, I can't
yeah,
remember that guy's
he's
name.
like at an improv troupe. Then he gets on.
You know, the one, Mike Bigley.
No. This is no. Yeah, maybe Birbiglia is in it.
Birbiglia,
but it's Key from Key and Peele.
Yeah, but it's his movie.
And he's the guy who basically he's like at the it is Birbiglia, and he's this guy who's at this improv troupe, and then he gets on Saturday Night Live, and like and it's all weird, and everybody hates him, and he's all rich now, and you're like, but again, he was the guy who's like carrying the fucking troupe,
correct,
while he was like the, you know, huge new upcoming star in this small improv troupe,
and that's what happens. You know, so there is maybe a small enough scale where that would work. Like, for example, a marriage or a family where you say, hey, listen, I'm making all the money, whatever, we'll still split it even. But the minute, even with a 2-person duo, maybe a 3, if you start to get to 25 people, let's say one person is now Jim Carrey, is he split, and he's one person is making the majority of the money. Now they're splitting it 25 ways. They obviously just quit.
Sure. They quit and they go do their own thing.
So anyone that's making any disproportional amount is going to quit.
Yes. Also, imagine you're the guy who's like, oh, I'm so sick. Like, you know, I have agents coming after me, all this stuff. And then there's someone who's just like,
you have to tell your agent, like, by the way, I split my money with 25
people. But also like, then there's like the 3 people who are like on the lower bottom who shouldn't be doing, like, the thing is with improv, it's like, we all know there's so many people who go, you have no business doing this.
And a lot of them, it's just a hobby. There's going to be one person that, you know, does as much work as they can, and their whole life is this. And they have calling meetings, and that's all they think about. That's their whole Instagram is promoting. And then there's going to be another guy that like has a job, is going to college, and they're like, yeah, I'll show up and do the performances. This is a fun hobby for me.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I guess I don't know, maybe they write this, but how do you go about getting rid of somebody? If it's like a co-op, what do you go, hey man, you suck so badly. You bomb every time you're on stage. Like,
how do you get rid of the bottom?
How do you get rid of the bottom people? Because that's obviously like, socialism is not about just fucking getting rid of the dead weight. It's all about keeping them on and supporting them. And you can't be like,
but that's who you're left with. Yeah.
That's who exactly. That's who you're left with. Like if you have this weird incentive structure.
You know, one other thing that, that was kind of like striking.
By the way, I really want this experiment to play out.
Yeah, you know what? Hopefully it works out and some of these guys get popular. It might work out for...
They guarantee someone
their thing might do really well and someone might get very popular, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and then there'll be this awkward conversation where they have, like, the biggest movie in America and they just made $20 million and they get 25 phone calls being like, hey, so remember that co-op we were in that you're still in technically because we did a blood oath? How do I go about getting that money?
How do I go about getting my milli? Click.
Oh, yeah, I'm a capitalist now. Click.
Yeah, right? But there's, you know how there is this, like, kind of idea where people always talk about, like, why are some people optimism and why are some people pessimists? And there's actually, you can sort of attach incentives to it. Like, for one, it's easier to be... especially if you're less creative, it's easier to be a pessimist because it's easier to say why things won't get better than it is to imagine scenarios where it would get better that don't exist yet, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to honestly be creative, and that's why like entrepreneurial people are more optimistic, right? And whereas when you see people in the news or people that are commentators, they're incentivized to be pessimistic. And a lot of people...
And that pessimism does better in their line of work, too.
It also does. So exactly, right? And then even in people's own lives, it's easier to go, you know, you go, dude, I don't have a job. I don't have this. Like, it's all of the potential things that you haven't thought of how it could get better. That's so much more difficult to imagine than how it might get worse. I could get fired. I could get like cut off of this. This person could kick me out of their house. Like, yeah. So it takes more creativity to imagine why things are going to be better than it does to know why they're worse. And in this specifically, instead of, if they're not liking the way things are going, and instead of imagining, you know, a new way, which is, you know, in my opinion, decentralization, they go, we don't like the way that the things are going. It's like, well, there's already an option that's tearing down the way the industries do things. Everyone's running their own personal little business. Like decentralization is the problem to like a problematic systemized. If you don't like the way the mainstream's running it, there already is a solution, and that's like the decentralization of all these industries.
And I will say this, just like, because they're saying we got to start this thing or whatever, but like in Toronto in the 80s, the kids in the hall, just like, they didn't have a fucking place. They just went into the Rivoli and they just did their show there. They just were like, you know, they didn't go. They didn't sign a job. They didn't sign a lease. Exactly. They like it to be like a job. Like they didn't sign a lease. The kids in the hall. They just were like, we're gonna put on a show. Were you like doing sketch comedy?
Yeah.
And they're like, we're just gonna put on a show. Like, you know, we know a million people do, where there's no contractual obligation. Any week you should be like, all right, we're done with this.
Yeah, we quit.
We're not doing this anymore, and that's it. And then they just like got big because they were amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, there's the present ways of doing it than that. And then there's these kind of like old ways. And they're just like, instead of being like, we don't like this, they go, remember that old thing that like got tried a million times? They're like, maybe that here. Because it's almost just like not a creative way of thinking of problems. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between like problem solving and just like you can't leave like an ideology. But again, this is not against any of those people. Like there probably is some super funny people in this fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's basically just in music saying, hey, we're going to create a 25-person band and we all own equally.
Like with
and it's just like,
arcade whatever thing or whatever. Or no, Broken Social Scene.
Those don't work.
No,
like
Broken
that.
Social Scene. That's the one where they have 25 people.
Yes,
right?
but they all have their own like different individual songwriting rights, and it's like they don't all make the same amount of money.
No, I don't know, 100%. And they don't like, you know, they'll be like, oh, Broken Social Scene's playing, and then everybody's like, where's Feist? And she's like, she comes never, okay? You might see her once a year.
Yeah.
Then you get the rest of the riffraff who is like not fucking doing a wedding that weekend. And then, but like everybody's like, yeah, there's a pecking order. One of you guys is a huge star. And then everybody's like kind of.
There's a few other big people.
There's a few other, but Feist is the one.
Yeah, she was the biggest.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, she is.
The Big Apple commercial.
Oh, she's got lots of fucking.
So they said, more than a year and a half into the pandemic, we've come to expect the unexpected. Perhaps the socialist revolution can start in improv comedy. So probably won't, but I'm going to say 80% chance it does. Yeah. There you go. It's speaking to it's speaking to the charged political moment of social reckoning when institutions at large and small are being reevaluated on their diversity, equity, and workplace harassment policies. So
yeah, 4 years ago.
Well, that was what you're kind of saying is my second point. So the first point is that, you know, obviously when someone's Jim Carrey, it's gonna be difficult, right? But the bigger point is these kind of solutions is what the industry's already doing, right? So it's kind of like, hey, what about more of like a socialized thing? So if they're saying like, hey, they're kind of, you sort of present yourself as like, I have this conversation always with comedians even, you know, because we're friends with so many diverse opinions, right? Like we have fucking buddies that do comedy where they're fucking straight up communists and all sorts of different, you know, that's a funny thing about comedy. It's like, you'll see your buddy, it'll do 10 minutes on like how men are the worst. And you'll be like, hey, here's a tag for that. Like, because you're so focused on like whether it's funny or not. Right. Mm. And I think that with these people, it's like the idea here from like a straight up branding perspective is they're saying we're sort of different than the industry, but the only thing different is like we're a bit more of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because they're saying it's like, hey, we're like, it's going to be like socialism and diversity and equity. And you go, oh, like Comedy Central. It's like, no, more.
But and then there's like the 3 straight white guys there who are like, oh, yeah. That's it. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to start sucking some dicks or something because this is getting scary.
But if you're this like underground thing and you want to be different from Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, this is what Hollywood is right now. Mm-hmm. So when you look at Hollywood, it's the equivalent of being, you know, right now, if you go, I'm going to differentiate myself. How? It's like, oh, I'm going to support Black Lives Matter. That's going to be my thing. And you're just like, dude, every actor's doing that. And they're like, oh, do it more. Not, you know, so it's irrelevant of what the things are. Yeah. It's just, it's not different. It's kind of like what's already happening. And that is the mainstream. So it's not some like new thing. That is the mainstream of entertainment right now.
Yeah. Also, these are just people doing pretend, so just let them have their pretend.
Boy, would these things have a lot of fights in that co-op.
Oh, again, it's like you know exactly how this is going to end. This is going to go full Animal Farm style. There's going to be the fucking guards. There's going to be like the lower people. They're going to they're going to eventually split themselves up into a like higher class, and lower class. It's going to just
Well, they said if comedy theaters aren't a path to getting rich or famous, perhaps one show at the Los Angeles Performance World can show that there's power in socialism. It's a model based less on propping up local celebs and more about supporting a theater because of its perceived morals and ethics. So the problem is kind of, there's this idea that it'll be about like community or whatever. The problem is you're taking a bunch of people that like really want to be famous. And that's just it's like, talk about, there might be someone who is, you know, they're very Bernie Sanders principled. The problem is I'm in this industry. I've been in this industry my whole life. All these people want to be celebrities.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, the people that are the most like, you know, politically left wing, they talk less about comedy and they talk, like I was talking to, you know, some LA people this weekend that are the most of all this stuff. And you know what they talk about? Like, oh, so-and-so just did a late night thing. Like someone got hired on this writing job. Like, oh, do you want to get on this industry? Like it's they're all very, you know, how do you move up this system, right? They want to be successful. Yes. They moved to LA or New York from their hometown. They told their parents, you know, who a lot of times have money, that I'm going to be a fucking comic. And their parents are like, all right, we'll support you. It's like they want to be famous.
Right. 100%. And the whole, what was the line, the morals and ethics line that you said?
They said a model that's based less on propping up local celebrities and more on supporting the theater itself.
Yes.
Because of its perceived morals and ethics.
Okay. People do not go to fucking watch comedy for the morals and ethics. They watch it to laugh. It's like saying I go watch the NBA for their morals and ethics. Maybe you're like, oh.
Some people do.
No. You're like, I like it when LeBron James, like, fucking has good morals and ethics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he still has to be LeBron James first.
Yes.
Like you can't, like he can't just be like, oh, LeBron James, he can't make a basket, but man, his morals and ethics are great. Like,
but what they also described is like any theater or comedy club, which again, this works better in probably a small town where there aren't celebs. But the idea of a comedy club, it's there. I mean, the corner was that where it's like, you like the people there, but really you're like, oh, that place is cool. So that's what they're saying. They're kind of like, we all have ownership in this place that's cool, which is to some degree true.
Sure.
You know, and it's like, why is it cool? It's like, well, we're the most, we're like the place you go if you kind of think all this stuff and we align with you and you're going to see that kind of comedy.
Yeah.
It's just all breaks down when someone's really famous, they'll leave. But the
or if there's like a
club can
or if there's a
like
financial problem where they go, hey, like for us to make like we're not doing that well, so we need money to keep our lights on, which is just like a pretty standard problem.
And all the people,
and they go, everybody, we need $200 from every person, and then people are like, I don't have it.
Well, if someone that's
and
very
then someone
true.
and then someone has to be like, okay, well, this guy over here, he has more money, so why don't you put in $600 and cover two of us?
Well, I want to own more.
And then he goes, yeah, I want more. And they go, no, we want. And then you have literally goes, well, that's not fair. You have all your infighting.
Because if someone owned it, it's like that is kind of necessary in these things too, because these are very like age specific in a lot of ways. So someone that's 20 kind of comes in or whatever, and they build this whole thing and they have this vision. Well, let's say 10 years from now, 15 years ago, everyone's left. You just have a new people that weren't really part of this. It's just going to keep,
there's a reason why there's such a thing as a hierarchy. Like in a business, a hierarchy works for that reason. If your hierarchy doesn't exist and it's just one flat column or like whatever, just like one where everybody, you go, it's mayhem. It's like, it doesn't work.
So they're kind of saying all that. They're right now the industry is driven by a white-led power structure that marginalizes diverse voices. So we're going to do it differently. And it's just like, there's like pop music is the mainstream of music. This is the equivalent of being like, well, we're super pop music. Because it's just, they're already saying all that stuff. The comedy co-ops hopes to allow performers to set their own ticket prices and take advantage of the door. So, I mean, you can already set your ticket prices.
Yeah.
I mean,
nobody's stopping you
can already
your ticket prices.
Yeah, I set my ticket
Not
prices.
only that, there's so many venues where they go, yeah, you can have the whole door. Just let me sell fucking chips and
let me sell chips. It's a pretty basic part.
I guess now they're seizing the means of production.
I guess UCB didn't. They're basing this on this other one where it's like they really scammed you.
Yeah, UCB fucked them
It's like they're coming out and they're like, we have this idea where, hear me out. I know it's wacky. People can set their ticket prices. You're like, what have you been doing for 10 years? They're like, UCB. Like,
but also, there's going to be 4 people who are super famous who are going to this is just going to turn into a new.
Well, that's the problem. Socialists want to be famous, and there's a big career in being an internet socialist, and they want to be famous more than they want this stuff. And that's the same. I was kind of thinking about that's funny. Do you know on Love Island? All these these Hollywood people that make shows like that. They kind of come out and they say we're all for all the right stuff. 2 people have committed suicide on that show.
Like on the
no afterwards because they do like a lie detector.
I was going to say I was like I might go watch it. Now.
So they do like a lie detector test, and some people, all this crazy stuff came out, and they became the villains of the internet, and they killed themselves. 2 or maybe more. I don't know. Some people have killed themselves, but it's like they keep doing it and be like, "Where are your ethics now?" And they're like, "Yo, I'm at the women's march, bro."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I'll be at the women's march.
Yo, I didn't fucking pull the trigger.
I'd expressed that I was a socialist, he said in a recent interview, and they were like, will you have a committee for censorship and canceling comedians? So someone was saying that facetiously to them, and they said, what? No, that's a misinformed idea that when people hear a socialist or worker cooperative, they think censorship. So I'd just say, want to bet?
Again, I'm like, someone who likes good comedy gossip and kind of infighting, it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, they're saying they'll deal with it internally, which might be like they put them in the beginning and the middle of the circle, and you go shame.
Shame. Yeah. Struggle sessions.
Shame. They all hit them with a feather. Shame. So that's.
I mean, the thing
you've just seen this idea a million times. I mean, it's a band sketch troupe.
It's just it's like everybody knows that yes, on paper, this sounds great. Nobody will dispute that on paper.
I don't know if it sounds that great on paper.
At least to them it does, but you're like, in practice,
the idea of it's romantic.
Exactly. And you're like, great, we all get to share in the money, and there's not going to be some mean dude or person who runs this.
It's always easy until there's money.
Who takes all the profits. Yeah, like we're losing money. Like, great, who cares? But it's even better is when there's one owner who's fucking like struggling and is running this whole place and losing money and pulling his hair out, and everybody's like, it sucks. As long as we get our $20 a spot or whatever.
Yeah, we've seen that.
You know, and then you're like, oh, the person's fucking turns it around and is making all this money, and people are like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
you're making money off of me.
But yeah, then there's the extremes where, like you said, at UCB, where it's the opposite. It's like, I mean, it's to some degree, there is like a social pressure for owners to, you know, operate somewhat reasonably.
Yeah, like
within market rates of like what it is.
No question, UCB were pieces of shit. Like,
well, yeah, you look around everywhere else and they go, this is how much they're paying. They're like, how much do you pay? And they're like, that's the thing.
Have you ever heard a little thing called slavery?
How much do you pay for people? It's like, well, if anything, we gave them $1 million worth of improv courses. Yeah. So the way we see it, they owe us money.
Yeah,
and we've been nice enough to cancel that debt.
It's kind of an indentured servitude scenario. They're just working off the
snake eyes, pal. So it's I'll just do a couple more things here where they go, this one's kind of funny. And again, I hate trashing this guy. Like, this guy just might be some improv guy and he might be funny, but because I was at one of the early meetings and James asked, what's 2% of 2,000? And I threw the number out, says the actor comedian, oh, it's $40. And he was like, oh God, you're good with numbers. So you should be the money committee. So this guy who can understand simple arithmetic's got it.
I mean, honestly, that was one of the things that was most made sense. I go, yeah, I guess you're letting people play to their strengths.
2% of 2,000. It's like, how so you're the only guy in the whole improv troupe that can do simple percentages.
And that's going to be the guy who basically ends up embezzling all the
well, he's like, these idiots can't even take.
Yeah.
He goes, he's like, how fast do you have to, like, even the dumbest, like the person who's like really not good at math, you go, it's 2% of 1,000 you could do in about 10 seconds or you know, 10 milliseconds, and you just double that. It's like anyone can. But yeah, there's always someone that embezzles money.
Yeah, that's another thing. It was always,
well, they finished the show, they have $1,000 in their pocket. No one was really keeping track.
No.
And then they're like, all right, let's split that 25 ways. And you go,
yeah. We will split that $500 25 ways, won't we?
Yeah, for sure. The 300 gets
300. Split it up. Split it up.
Shit. Yeah, they're having fun. You know, it's more of an LA Times in the media. That's what I'm saying. It's like a bunch of people want to start their 25-person thing and do an improv thing. And you know what? There's a chance that one of them pops off, and that's like anything else. But this, you know, LA Times being like, is this the future of the entertainment industry? No, the future of the entertainment industry is decentralization. That's just, unless it was government imposed, the future of the industry is like, clearly look around at who's popular, who's doing well, and what the trend is. The trend is that people being able to speak directly to their consumers and directly
it's amazing
to people
that
like them.
They didn't even reference that.
The way that the whole industry's changed, where it's like, if you want to write a book, you can just make it. You can put it on the internet. If you want to start a YouTube channel, you can just do that. You can be supported on patreon.com/theboyscast by people who directly specific like you without going to Comedy Central and demanding that their gatekeepers, approve of what people younger than them like in a culture that they're out of touch with. So no, that's the future.
But it's amazing that in this article that's purportedly journalism, and then they ask this question, is this the future? There was no thing where we go, or maybe the future is like, you know, how we go on YouTube every day and TikTok and all that stuff. Like, that never just came up.
Yeah,
that might be the future.
Yeah. You're going by. You go, all these people.
You're the LA Times, the epicenter of fucking entertainment in the world.
That's correct.
And you go, all these people, like YouTubers, and you have the dumbass walls with the influencers take photos of, and that never even like just pops up in the article. Maybe that's the future.
Maybe this new thing that is clearly presented itself as the future, undebatably, where you go, who's the biggest celebrities in the world right now? Mostly like Dixie D'Amelio, whatever the fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go, I wonder what the future is. Maybe it's if 25 people get together and start an improv, dude.
A socialism improv troupe.
But my beef is with, you know, LA Times, just like, the story should be like some kids formed an improv troupe.
Yeah. We wish them the best.
Yeah, honest, right?
Yeah, we wish them the best.
The story.
We'll check in with them in a year to see where they're at.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. And they go.
And yeah, again, no slate on them.